Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tim Richards, Technical Services Manager of the Managing General Agents Association, and on behalf of the MGAA, I'd like to welcome you to our briefing this afternoon. This is being delivered by PADA Consulting on the subject of making compliance simple, straightforward and sustainable. Before I introduce our presenters, I'd just like to run through a few housekeeping points. Please ensure your microphone and camera are turned off. If you'd like to ask a question, feel free to use the chat button at the bottom of your screen. Time allowing, these will be asked and answered at the end of the event. If we run out of time, questions will be answered post-event. The presentation is accredited for CPD points if relevant to your ongoing professional development programme. This briefing is being recorded and a link to the recording will be issued post-event. Together with our slides, these slides and our feedback survey, please take the time to complete our survey. This will take no longer than 2 minutes and allows us to deliver the best possible future events to our membership. So today's briefing is on the subject of making compliance simple, straightforward and sustainable from PADA Consulting. So let me introduce you to our presenters, Sunita Pada and Larry Shapiro. Sunita is the founder of PADA Consulting and has undertaken and managed a wide range of regulatory engagements for firms across the insurance sector, holding senior positions within several of these firms, including Howden Broking Group, XL Catlin and Lloyds. Sunita has been an active advisory board member since 2020, working with senior insurance leaders of colour to create a stronger voice to influence the industry at all levels. PADA Consulting's foundation is built on the expertise within the team, which comes from commercially minded professionals who apply compliance in a very practical and business-focused way through commitment, collaboration and consultancy. Larry is the CEO and founder of Corporation, a technology consultancy and software house. He has extensive experience in developing and procuring enterprise software systems. Corporation also assists clients with system architecture, business analysis, project management and vendor management, and with understanding the applications of emerging technologies. So without further ado, enjoy the briefing, everyone, and over to you, Sunita.
Thank you, Tim. I'm just going to briefly run through the agenda for today. So we've got the learning objectives, changing regulatory landscape, managing regulatory change, and obviously what EverComply is and why it's different. And then we'll do a quick piece on the subscription plans before we head into the demo. And obviously it goes without saying that we're happy to take questions. If you put them in the chat, then I think Tim will kind of facilitate those questions and responses. Learning objectives for today is recognise and list the challenges of an ever-changing compliance environment, outlining the key regulatory changes on the horizon, enabling you to be better prepared and, more importantly, not missing the deadlines, summarising the benefits of an automated compliance platform and explain how EverComply can help managing general agents and intermediaries keep up to date with regulatory requirements. So the key challenges, I think we've all experienced this over the last few years, especially the last few years with the pricing practices, with consumer duty, with the value distribution measures, and that's just on the tip of the iceberg. So we have an evolving regulatory landscape, which is constantly stress testing our compliance functions and the conduct rules, and keeping up with these changing regulatory guidelines is a cottage industry in itself. So let alone, once we put that to one side, we've also got things like data protection and privacy requirements. You know, the ICO are still hot on data breaches, managing conflicts of interest, making sure that you've got appropriate complaints handling and dispute resolution processes in place, cybersecurity hot on the risk register for a number of firms, and monitoring and oversight from insurers, and then making sure that people have the appropriate development and training. That becomes a key point, especially with consumer duty coming into place on the 31st of July. Why? Because of culture and behaviour playing a significant role in that consumer duty, in terms of it's not just about the rules and the regulations. It's also about the mindset, the behaviour and the culture within a given firm. And to navigate these challenges, firms need to stay informed, make sure they've got appropriate resources for compliance activities, and proactively adapt their practices to meet these evolving regulatory expectations. So not only is it a challenge within the compliance function itself, but I'm sure when I say that most of you must be experiencing challenging kind of finding that resource to support you with all of these regulatory initiatives. As you will be aware, and I believe that there was a session on this a few months ago, or maybe about a month or so ago, on the FCA Business Plan. So the most recent business plan emphasises a more assertive and adaptive regulator. So what do we mean by that? So if you will have noticed that within the latest business plan, the regulator has said that they're going to deal with problem firms, look to reduce harm from firm failure, improve oversight of appointed reps, reduce and prevent financial crime, and putting consumer duty and putting the consumer first is primarily at the top of the list, and then ESG as well. So what does that mean when I say in terms of the regulator being more assertive? So the regulator has, as we've experienced across a number of firms, has started to issue Section 166s far more frequently. Being a data-led regulator, and also with the resource limitations at the regulator themselves, a few years ago, the certain tools were given to the supervisory teams, and the Section 166 tool is one of those. Another tool that is being used quite a lot this year is a voluntary requirement. A VREC can also end up on the register and on the firm's register, so it ends up being in the public domain. So it's an action that you may need to take, that the regulator specifically requires a firm to take certain action, and that VREC will end up being on a public register. And then to top it all up, on the FCA Business Plan, there's a new enforcement division that's been put into place to look and scour around the market for any customer detriment. So that's ensuring that the consumer duty has been implemented with how the regulator has expected it to be implemented. And that is quite a big piece of regulation, and I'm sure you've heard the phrase, it's a paradigm shift. It's like an ocean liner doing a U-turn in the middle of a big ocean. So it is going to be an iterative process, but there is an expectation on firms to ensure that they've completed all the actions that they set out back in October. And as you will also have seen, there's been various communications from the regulator reiterating that message. But more importantly, from an EverComply perspective, on the regulatory change piece within the business plan, you will have seen that the FCA is collaborating with stakeholders on delivering the outcomes of the future regulatory framework and the Edinburgh reforms. So there will be amendments to the handbook, and they will be quite significant, which means that policies that are currently in place will have to be redrafted to align with the new reforms. As I've mentioned a little bit about consequences for non-compliance. So there are serious consequences. As I've said earlier, that the regulator is becoming more and more a data-led regulator. And what does that mean? Well, what that means is all the regulatory returns that you submit, the regulator will be looking at that more intrusively and identifying any kind of adversities where they will then be taking action. Not action straight away, but they will be taking action in the sense that they will be communicating with firms of all sizes. I know many years ago, smaller firms thought, well, that's okay, we're off the radar, the regulator won't know we're here. But trust me, the regulator knows that where everybody is right now. So from consequences for non-compliance, there's the financial penalties. So that's the Section 166 down the enforcement route, and a financial penalty that ends up more likely ends up in the public domain. There's legal action against individuals. So some of you will have seen that there was a discussion paper on the SMCR So that's looking at, consequences for individuals and not just firms. Anything that ends up in the public domain then also carries some reputational damage, loss of license. So the FCA has the power and always has had the power to revoke a firm's license, and then the loss of business as a result of some of this. So non-compliance with FCA regulation can have serious consequences. So what's the benefits of an automated compliant platform? Time and resource savings. Well, I already mentioned one of those earlier on in terms of the difficulties in sourcing compliance resource in the current climate. So this helps towards that. Time, in terms of the amount of time it takes you to transpose the new requirements and update your regulatory policies. And now you will see that with the consumer duty coming into force, that isn't, here you go, we can put a consumer duty policy in place and off we go. You've got to review the whole landscape of your policies to assess the impact on any one of your given policies to see how consumer duty feeds into that. Because remember what I said earlier, it's about the culture and behaviour of a firm. So it's got to be inherent in everything you do. So this consumer duty requires you to review all of your policies to assess any impact on those. What else will an automated compliance platform do for you? Provide you with real-time regulatory updates, and I'll let Larry demonstrate those in the system itself. Streamlined compliance monitoring, dependent on the subscription that you take. Auditing and documentation. Cost efficiency, again, I'll come to that a little later in the presentation, and the scalability and adaptability. So the platform is designed to accommodate growth and adapt to the evolving regulatory requirements. So from my perspective, and obviously you're probably sitting there thinking, obviously she's going to say that, I just see as a plus of having a automated compliance platform. So managing regulatory change with EverCompliance. So it's a cloud-based SaaS compliance platform. It's designed specifically for solo regulated insurance intermediaries. That includes MGAs. As we all know, that the regulator has not yet accommodated specific rules for MGAs, that you're either an intermediary, a solo regulated firm, or you're an insurer, aka a dual regulated firm. So this was founded and piloted in 2022, and we formally launched in March 23. And some may say, wow, that's quite quick. And yes, it was. From idea to pilot, it took us 6 months. And then we had a working group and our pilot firms. And then we went live in March. It's a joint venture, as you know, between Paddock Consulting and Corporation, brings compliance under one roof, and gives firms a more cost-effective alternative to that in-house compliance department. And actually, it's not meant to replace your compliance people, it's meant to support them. But for smaller firms where somebody who doesn't have the compliance knowledge and takes the compliance responsibility, and in the current climate where there's that accountability framework, you might want to use the system to support that individual who doesn't necessarily have the in-depth experience in the compliance and regulatory world. What it also does, it will provide you with policy updates as soon as new regulations come into force. So, but as for consumer duty, all of the policies within the EverComply platform will be reviewed and assessed and updated. Things like the compliance manual with the new principle, excuse me, and all of the policies will be updated in line with the consumer duty requirements to go live prior to the 31st of July. It also provides a tailored set of policies and a compliance manual, some useful templates, links and forms. As I've already said, it automatically updates any relevant regulatory changes, does the horizon scanning for you and alerts you to some key regulatory events or key regulatory dates. That's not just external, but dependent on the package you take. It can be your internal dates as well, like board meetings, etc. And you have access to 3 specialist compliance skill sets. So not a generalist compliance person, but you've got policy management, advisory and audit. What makes us different? It's automated, it's sustainable, it's simple to use, I say that because every time we've demonstrated this, and we have demonstrated it to a number of firms, and we have a number of users now, and the feedback that we get that's top of the list is very simple to use. It's a flexible modular tier-based subscription system, so you pay for it monthly through Go Cardless. It's a tailored suite of policies. It's got practical tools and templates. It's a cost-effective solution, and it's suitable for third country branches or groups. So the subscription plans, because this is what you're going to be interested in, well, how much is that going to cost me? Well, the average cost of a compliance assistant ranges from between 40 to 55k, compliance manager between 50 and 80k. So 98% of employers find it challenging to find this skilled talent today. Now, those figures have been taken from the Barclay Simpson 2023 salary guide. So I haven't made it up, and these are the cost of compliance in the insurance sector, not banking. So for bronze, what do you get? You get a suite of customized policies and a compliance manual. You get access to templates, useful forms and links, horizon scanning, alerts to key regulatory events, the monthly newsletter, and option to purchase compliance advice. So that is an option that's always there in the bronze package, and that for the cost of 18k per annum paid monthly. So what do you get for silver? You get everything that you get for bronze, but you also get 7 hours of compliance advice each month provided by the appropriate SME at Paddock Consulting. And what do you get for gold? You get all the silver benefits, and you also get 4 audits or monitoring reviews per annum. These monitoring and audit reviews could then be shared with any insurer who may be planning to conduct any audits or may want copies of your policies. It's all easily shared, as I'll let Larry demonstrate that. So for silver, it's 30k per annum, and for gold, it's 48k, and additional fees payable for group companies and for extra users. But the plus side, as an MGAA member, you get a 5% discount. I won't go through all of these policies, but the compliance manual houses a number of these policies. Templates, we've got a number of templates that are useful. This is all through intelligence that we've captured during the years of Paddock Consulting, where people have constantly asked us for information. So we've made that information available. Things like breaches templates, financial promotions templates, gifts and entertainment, outsourcing, and then some more general templates. When COVID first hit us a couple of years ago, and the regulator issued something on wind down plans, we had a number of firms asking us, well, what is this? And it's always been a requirement, and all firms need to have that in place. And we've very helpfully made a template available on our platform. This is the list of audits that we've currently got on the schedule. The reason why we have a list is because we have a framework, we have the scopes already identified, so it streamlines the whole process when you do have an audit. So from end to end, from day 1 to day 3, you'll end up getting your report. So when you think about how long would it take you to create or update a compliance manual, 28 policies, 13 templates and registers, and these are growing, and that equates to 417 pages and over 100,000 words. So just think about the time and resource it takes to update all of that. And with the ever-changing regulatory landscape, where regulation is constantly changing, you have to go back and revisit and do all of these things again. And I will now stop sharing, and so I will allow Larry to share. I haven't been able to see any questions in the chat because I was too busy paying attention to the presentation. So I will stop sharing, and I'm going to hand it to you, Larry.
Maybe before I jump in, Tim, I think, has a poll question that he's going to share with us. So Tim, maybe if you or Jen are happy to share the first poll question, that'd be great. And maybe while people are kind of thinking a little bit about that, and we'll just give people a bit of time to fill that in. Sunita, there was a question, one for you, that there's been lots in the press about the impending Edinburgh reforms. And what do you think is a realistic timescale for those to actually have an impact?
I think realistically, we're looking kind of latter end of 24, but but with the FCA, we constantly see this where we get a date for something and it changes and we're constantly waiting. I don't think it's going to be any earlier than like Q4 2024. But then I could be surprised on that one. But I think we'll start. I'm not sure if it's going to be one big bang of a change or whether there's going to be incremental changes. But we can certainly find out more around the detail of that when we get it and happily share it with the MGAA members through the MGAA.
Okay, I can end that poll there perhaps. But
right. So I think right. So out of 33 people here, 19 people have responded. So thank you very much. So what the question was roughly how much time does it take your compliance team to update your compliance policies following regulatory change? We've had 2 of the 19 say that it takes them hours. So, and 9 of the 19 saying it takes them days, and 8 of the 19 saying it takes them weeks. So in the majority, it takes people days and weeks to update this, which means it takes you away from the day-to-day activities of other stuff that's going on whilst you're updating these policies and documentations following any regulatory change. So maybe this is the appropriate time to have the second poll question before you go into the rest of the demo.
Sure, great idea.
So the question there is, how soon after regulatory change comes into effect are your policies updated? Come on, let's have more people responding. We don't know who you are, so we're not going to come and target you or anything. Right, okay, I'll settle for 24 of 30. So how soon after regulatory change comes into effect are your policies updated? 5 out of the 24 said in the same week. Well, that's brilliant. 15 of the 24 in the same month, and 4 out of the 24 in the year. So would it surprise you if I said to you that one of our clients that we engaged with last year had not updated their policies since 2012? So policies should be short, sharp, succinct, and taking into account that they do what they should be doing, so that the people who are working in the business don't need to read through reams and reams of documents. So just one thing to note there. So thank you very much for everyone who responded to those questions.
And the question that just came up in the chat is a very relevant one, and thanks for that from Adam. Can the policies be used by firms as part of the FCA application process? Absolutely. So we just had a firm going through that exactly. It was actually a third country branch being set up in the UK by a European firm. And it was about a month before their application completed. They signed up to the service. They got all the policies, downloaded them all and submitted them as part of the application. Don't know, Sunita, if there's anything you want to add on that.
Just to say that they have now been in front of the regulator, and as you all know, the regulator is not going to endorse what we've done, but they didn't criticise it, so we'll just take that as an implicit endorsement.
Yeah, and they've been authorised now.
Yes, they are authorised now, yes. Yeah, and I think we have one more poll question, and maybe we could get that up on screen and then ready to take questions from anyone. So, how confident are you that your policies meet regulatory requirements? Oh, that's a straight one in there. Very confident. Love that. Well, we've got 23. So 9 out of the 23 are very confident that they're up to date. So that's good to hear. And 9 are fairly confident and managing to keep up. And the 5 not very confident. And that's because, you know, as we've discussed earlier, there's so much change, and especially for smaller firms, it's a lot to keep on top of and keep changing those policies and correlating procedures and everything else that comes with it, i.e. the training, etc. So good to hear. Thank you very much for taking the time today.
So I was just going to ask one thing. We'd love a piece of feedback. If having seen the system, you can think of any additional features that you think would be really helpful to you from a compliance perspective. Like one area we are currently looking at is obviously the area of training. So how we help people actually embed the policies more widely within your firms. But if there's anything that you think, oh, it would be really nice if we could include this as well, if you could pop that in the chat for us, that would be really great and much appreciated. Thank you.
Oh, well, there's somebody in the chat that's just said, I think it's very impressive. Thank you very much. How do we get in contact with you? Our details are with the MGAA, so you can go via Tim and we will receive your contact details, and Larry's put it on there, but I was going to suggest via Tim, but please do reference that you are an MGAA member because of the 5% discount that we are offering members. Are there any other questions? Any suggestions?
Feel free to type them in now, everyone. I'll just put my email address in the chat as well, just in case anyone wants to contact me, and I can pass on any details. Okay, so we've just got one question that's just come in. Sorry, I missed the start. Is this UK only or UK and Republic of Ireland?
At the moment, it is UK only. We do have plans to broaden it, but we would have to take it. That requires a little bit more work on our end. We do, however, look at European entities who are looking at their third country branches in the UK, but as of yet, it is for UK firms under the FCA, i.e. solo regulated entities, but we do have plans to broaden it.
Great, thanks, Anita. Any other questions? Anybody, feel free to put them in the chat, or indeed come off mute if you wish to. But we have got one from Angela Roberts. Does it include document any sign-off process, e.g. policies?
Go on, Larry.
Yeah, sorry, I might have run through that quite quickly, Angela, but yes, it does. So that notion of implementing a policy or adopting a policy. So for every policy, you can, I can probably just show it if I share it very quickly again. Let me just share my screen again. So if we go into the policies, the tick box, so you can see this one's been implemented, and so I can't implement it again. But in terms of signing it off, we could have capture the date that it was presented and adopted or signed off. We can capture any notes that we wish to about this, and then we can put in a next review date. And then you can have sort of a record here of all the policies, anything that's ticked, where it's kind of the tick has gone grey. It's already been signed off. So there is a process for recording that, absolutely.
And it does, the system does maintain the audit trail so that you can see all of the previous additions as well.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions, anyone?
I'd just say that if anybody does have any questions, and if you're at the conference next month, do swing by, we'll be there. So we'll be happy to take any questions face to face.
Yeah, July the 6th at Old Billingsgate. So yeah, feel free to pop along to the stand. Okay, looks like that's it. Just from Daniela, great, thanks a lot, really good webinar. Just to echo that from my point of view as well, and the MGAAs. So thanks very much for your presentations today, Sunita and Larry. And thanks also to all of you for joining us. Please don't forget to provide your feedback. Look out for forthcoming MGAA events, and I hope you have a productive afternoon. Thanks again for joining us, and see you all soon.